Welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers with you, here to help you with your inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. We have a very special episode today. I have Mackenzie Wollenzein with me. She is my first cosmic surfer. She is apprenticing under me. She is certified to do natal astrology and will soon be doing consulting astrology. It is my honor and pleasure to check in with her today. She's with me for the whole episode. We've got some wild astrology coming up. We talk about that, and I'll be doing an update later in the week so that you don't get hit by surprise on July 9th. But I didn't want to spoil this episode. It's a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. So whether you're stuck in traffic or heading out with the fam or just kicking it around the house, having some coffee and folding laundry or doing the dishes or hopefully getting some rest, I'm happy to join you. And I hope you enjoy the conversation today on the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. Oh, we have a treat. We have the wonderful Mackenzie. How are you, Mackenzie?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I am very good. And it's so fun to have you on with me for the whole podcast.
I know. This will be fun.
It will be
It's
fun.
recording.
Yeah. So are we ready for July?
I mean, what else can you do? Just keep on trucking forward.
Right. Oh my gosh. So speaking of July, let's give our listeners kind of a heads up. Now, I've talked about it in the last couple of episodes. We have that full moon on the 3rd Monday. It is a doozy, my friends. It's a doozy.
Yeah. Let me pull it up on my phone.
Yeah, you're going to pull it up. See, this is how we are. We start talking about dates and somebody's pulling up charts. For those of you new to the podcast, Mackenzie was my first cosmic surfer, because we have cosmic surfing is a blend of astrology and metaphysics and spirituality.
Yeah. That was like 2.5 years ago already.
Right? It was like early 2021.
Yeah.
So
end of 2020, like it's just, yeah. I mean, both of us have grown a lot, you know?
Oh yeah. It's just when you're in aligned company, people, you don't have to be wanting the same thing, but you're wanting the same thing from the heart center. Like you're curious, you want to grow, you want to get the most out of life.
Yeah.
You know, and you expand, you grow, and such an honor to journey with you. So we've got a lot coming up this month. Some wild astrology. And to prepare for this full moon, we had the full moon ceremony last week, a meditation. And it was a pretty powerful one. There was a lot of energy that came through. How did that feel for you?
It always is such a like grounding, cleansing feeling. And I have very strong like inner vision. So I really like visualize very well. And so I like, visualize all my centers being like cleansed out, like, a flute almost. And it's just really like an inner shower, kind of like a cleanse. And yeah, just very visual. And I've been feeling like there's like a preparation for something. So maybe it's like this month, next month, who knows, like the rest of the year. But and like all of those meditations that you do, they've been like amazing. Like I can just sense that it's coming through you, like being very much channeled. And yeah, it's been good. And it's subtle, but I definitely notice the differences from before and after. and it's all energy, you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
energy.
It is all energy. And when you say it's subtle, but you notice the changes, is it changes in your body, changes in the energy around you? What would
Both.
that be? Mm-hmm.
Definitely both. Like it leaves me feeling lighter in my body, but then like the energy around me, it's just like, because sometimes it's really easy to get like really focused on like the negative things and like, you know, the stuff that some things that you like can't change. And you know, dealing with my own mental health, like
Mm-hmm.
getting like dealing with the depression. But
Mm-hmm.
like when you can sometimes like cleanse that out and like not like you can cleanse out the mental health, but like um choosing where to put your focus, it's easier when you're kind of like in that lighter feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if that like was cohesive.
No, it made perfect sense to me. And listeners, if you have questions, you can ask in Patreon. That would be useful. Use the Googly sheet.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, yeah. It was that one. That meditation, though, it was a different quality to the energy.
mhm,
It's always kind of interesting to channel because I was very resistant to being an obvious channel as a
mhm,
younger person because it made me look weird. I know that so many people are like, I want to do that. And I'm like, "All right, you know, reluctant.
mhm.
Um, but my mentor and my soul sister, his wife, they were there, and that was a joyful reunion. Thomas
Yeah,
C. Chavez and Reverend Gabriel Chavez are wonderful, heart-centered people. So that was kind of cool to have them there. And
yeah.
they, Gabrielle's been having a tremor. They're older, obviously they're my mentors and I'm older, but
Mhm.
her tremor in her left arm ceased during the meditation. And that
Wow.
was some interesting feedback. Yeah. I was like, well, listen to it more,
Right.
But yeah, and Thomas felt it as well. And of course he would, because he's who taught me a vast amount of energy work. Um, so that was kind of cool. And I felt while it was going on, because, I'm not here during it. I'm way back here,
Mhm.
but I'm still present. And I caught the amount of soothing away irritation.
Yeah.
And so, because irritation it's dangerous and dangerous is a big word, but it is dangerous when you're trying to focus yourself energetically. You notice how many fights it starts, online. Somebody says something in a tone somebody doesn't like, and then
Mhm.
down we go the rabbit hole. And
Mhm.
looking at the astrology coming of July and August, it'll be easy to be irritated. And so we either have to remove the irritation or learn how to kind of let it wash through us.
Mhm.
Um, so now
But
you
yeah.
had something funny happen though, because you are so clairvoyant. Yes, I said it for you. You are so clairvoyant. Mackenzie's gonna be like, "Oh, stop."
Right.
Um, you had a very funny visual. What happened for you?
Yeah, so um you know, you're going down like the energy centers, and when we got to the third eye, I saw these like little girls in my third eye, and they were like tapping on my third eye saying, tag, you're it, tag, you're it. So that's like something that I remembered. I was like, huh, that's interesting, you know, that's never
Mhm.
happened before. So
Right.
yeah.
My response is, well, dang, I guess I'm going to be teaching people how to prepare for channeling. Guess that's up
Yeah.
next, huh?
Yeah.
And what it is and how to do it. So hold tight. I'll
Mhm.
in the ever-growing to-do list that has appeared. Um, so when we look at, there's one other event this month that I have my eye on. and that is July 12th, and with the nodal shift.
Mhm.
Have you been thinking about that?
I have, mostly like because the South Node will be conjunct my Mercury then, square Pluto. So
Good
of course,
times.
yeah, like of course I'm thinking about like my chart, but then I'm also thinking about like globally, it's gonna be definitely a change, big change of energy.
Mhm,
I really don't know what to expect.
mhm.
Because since I've been
Yes.
studying astrology, like I don't know that there's been an aspect like this. So it's kind of like, can't wait to observe this and add it to my notes, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. When you're observing these, can you talk about that to our listener? How do you observe these things going on? Do you tell
I
us?
mean, I still like, I've been doing living by Luna journaling
Hmm.
ever since I've known you. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of like I'll journal like the events throughout the day. And like a lot of times I like journal about like what's going on in the world and just like my own internal feels and like what's going on in the people closest to me. So I'll journal that and then I'll look at transits and I'll be like, oh, I bet it's like this transit or and kind of like feel into that energy. And I feel like I've gotten a feel for the energy of each planet. So now
Hmm.
I kind of am aware of like, oh yeah, that's definitely Pluto that I'm feeling right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah,
Hmm. How do you
it,
feel, Pluto?
it's an intensity. It's kind of like almost like a background irritant in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and it's like hold steady, that's kind of like
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
feeling. Um,
Hmm. Otherwise, it's a crushing weight.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really
Hmm.
is like,
Hmm.
and I have this awareness like from learning from you that it's going to be a power up. But it's just about like leaning into that discomfort in a way and not
Hmm.
like shying away and not like
Hmm.
doing the self-sabotage that like I used
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
Um, just really leaning into that discomfort and staying steady and staying
Hmm.
strong.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of what we're taught culturally, right? We're taught to shy away from discomfort. And it's not like you're trying to get hurt or, you're not running into a burning building. And obviously, if a building is filling up with smoke, you don't sit there going, I accept where I'm at. That's not quite it.
No.
but but when we're feeling it, like it can feel really physical,
Mhm.
Pluto is opposite my sun and Mercury. It's not as heavy this time. I find it
Mhm.
really interesting. How about you? Because it's squaring off with your Mercury.
Mhm. I definitely felt it a lot more like whenever that was like 6 months ago or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, more so now it's kind of like, oh, this is back. Like I know this energy though.
Right, right. Yeah. For me, I can't push it. I can't
Yeah.
push it. And with it opposite the Mercury, it's been a reshaping of, because my sun and Mercury are cazimi, there's not a lot of separation there between my energy levels and my thinking.
Mhm.
Because my thoughts are me and me are my thoughts.
Mhm.
And I've been feeling the shifting in self-awareness, like especially for a self-aware person. It's really weird. It's like, oh, I see what my mentor was telling me, 20 years ago. Oh, I see what this astrology teacher was saying. This is where I'm holding back. And that's
Mhm.
that social cultural programming that it needs to, and it kind of just fallen away at this point. It's not that hard. Oh no, what have I done? It's
Yeah.
just,
Mhm.
let's hold the focus. I'm just pulling up July for us.
That's kind of cool though, like that you remember from those readings or like those like teachings from your mentors and stuff. Like they're just always in the back of your brain, and then like one day it clicks, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that way for everybody, but I think if you were an aspirant, if you are an aspirant or have the desire to serve or grow or make the world just slightly better in some way, and you've taken time to learn and teachers have arrived. I think there's an element of that, or I don't know. For me, it's probably the Cancer Mercury. I have a I have a photogenic memory, or not photogenic, photoeidetic memory, and I can see the moment these people said these things, and they'll pop up for no reason, and I'll get memories or stories coming up, and I'll be like, oh, that's important, but I don't know why. So the subconscious is always like, it is never off duty. It's just churning it out. But
Yeah.
you will hear me, I'm sure, long after I'm gone. You'll be like,
I
oh, Laurie.
it's funny, like I'll catch myself like saying something in my mind. I'm like, that's a Laurie quote, you know. But even in like the people that I've read for, it's the same thing. They'll be like,
Mhm.
I'm so glad that I found Laurie. Like I've made these
No.
decisions like that are like a good decision, not like a good decision, but like a decision that I wouldn't have made had I not like found
Mm.
Laurie. And like it's just
No.
really cool. Oh.
It's a pleasure to pass it on, because that's
Mhm,
what we do. We learn, we grow, we gain, and then you gain your own insights and you pass that on, but then you gain insights and
mhm.
pass that on.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny. You always said that you learn something each reading, and like that is like, yes, you learn something like astrological, but it's almost like a reflection, and like I learned something about myself through each reading. So it's like
yes.
a
Yeah.
mutual, that's that sixth house.
There's a lot of mutuality in reading. You do
Mhm,
learn in every single one. You learn like, oh, how energy expresses just a little bit differently. You can
mhm.
see similar charts,
Yeah.
but it'll be expressed just this way or just this way.
Mhm.
While I look for this, hang on a second. I'm going to embarrass you. We're just going to do the show differently because I like how it's going. Um, so this was a message from one of Mackenzie's clients.
Oh.
Thank you so much for such an awesome reading. I really enjoyed it and it was so helpful. Thanks for the recommendations too. That's funny. I just got that book on tarot from Rachel Pollack last week. LOL. I'll be sure to keep you updated in the future on things because I do feel called to try Reiki and get more into my spiritual path. Thank you again. And how does it feel to get notes like that?
It's really cool.
Right?
Because yeah, it's almost difficult to just do like the natal reading and then be like, all right, see you later.
Right? Have a
I
good
almost like,
life.
right. So it's really cool to like get those messages, and who doesn't love some validation? But
Well, we need the feedback,
mhm,
it keeps you going because, it, you're always wondering, did you pick the right direction? So having
mhm.
feedback is essential.
Yeah.
But I love that emphasis on spirituality.
Mhm,
Um, and I think as we move through the bumpy months ahead, because they're very bumpy. If you're a patron, you have access to the 2023 year ahead. And that's the mundane stuff. What we're talking about now can help you move through the bumpity, 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 bumpity bump.
mhm,
Um, so I'm just going to read out our transits for the month, the biggies, because there's a bunch in between that are not the biggies. But we got that full moon July 3rd. We've got Mars entering Virgo on July 10th. That'll probably be a significant day because anytime a planet ingresses or a luminary ingresses into another sign, you'll feel the shift if you're sensitive to it or made yourself aware of what that shift feels like. But everybody feels a little something. They just might not know what to call it. Mercury enters Leo on July 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Leos, we're not dogging you. Okay.
No, not at
But
all.
we're just thinking what that like that. Oh, it's gonna be loud. It's
Yeah.
gonna be loud. Maybe a lot of arguments and very impassioned. Okay, we've seen what's been going on with Mars in Leo. There's been a lot of dramatic discussion online and people choosing sides and so. And then on the 12th, so we've got the 10th, we've got Mars entering Virgo, Mercury enters Leo on the 11th, and then the 12th, we have the North Node entering Aries, square Pluto. It is probably going to be a historic day.
Yeah. It'll be, I mean, I just feel like any major shift in any planetary, motion, like even I know the nodes are a calculation point, but just any shift in energy, but then you throw Pluto in there, it's like, oh yeah, we'll definitely be seeing something. Something.
Something loud.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be stuff going on in Europe. I mean, my spidey senses are leaning towards stuff in Ukraine and stuff in Russia. That coup that wasn't a coup is probably still going to continue. It's not over. Some of the news has been it looks a little scary, from the news point of view. I still will hold with we do not have global thermonuclear war. Okay. But that does not mean there won't be other altercations or accidents. And I still am leaning more with accidents than like somebody just pushing something stupid, just something falling over, somebody not watching something attentively or someone not trained well enough. I don't see it being a big global thing. I think things will continue to be regional for at least this year.
Yeah.
But we as individuals can't do anything about that big stuff. But what we can do to help shift things is work on our own energy, and that's something you've learned from me, because the future is made up of a lot of individual little decisions, not just the power players. That's an illusion. If we can just tip our own consciousness, just tip the needle, we avoid some worst case scenarios. So how's that helped you knowing that?
I think it, like, I used to just feel really like helpless to world events and like just everything going on like in life. So just knowing that like when I hold my own consciousness and like I don't fall like back as much anymore. And even like in our like moderators group, like I feel like we're all like so supportive of each other. And like when one person's quiet, everybody's like, yeah, like, hey, like you okay? Like this is a safe space, like, and just like having that communal support and like in our Discord, there's so much support. I think just that really helps, and it echoes out into other people's lives, like even like my family and like my close friends. Like I've noticed like when I talk about these things, like it just like it spreads, and it starts with yourself and then it just like a ripple in the water.
It's ripples in a pond.
Yeah.
Yep. peace begins with us. And I don't think we'll ever have a time where human beings are like, la 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 la, we all think the same. And it would be a very boring world if it did. But it is, and I think it's important to listen to other people's point of views. They've had different life experiences. And instead of having the competition of whose life's been the worst and who's suffered the most, it's important to listen to that perspective and learn from it, instead of being like, well, but I've had this hard time, and it's like, yes, you have. And so has that person. And maybe we can hear that life isn't a bowl of cherries sometimes. And maybe with a little more compassion, we can do better things.
You're giving yourself that compassion. I think that's a big one. That's kind of I've been telling a lot of people that lately, like, don't be so hard on yourself, like, give yourself that compassion that you give other people. And like, maybe I need to hear that.
Oh, don't we always give the advice we need to hear?
Yes. Funny how that works.
Right. See. New moon in Cancer is on the 17th. That one's kind of trippy looking too. Pull up that chart. That's the 17th of July. I had a bunny rabbit born on that day because I raised rabbits when I was a little girl, and I had a
I love
rabbit
that
tree.
you remember that.
Oh, Tara Rose. She was born on the 7th. She was I loved all my bunnies, but Tara Rose was very special. She was a big old red satin and very cuddly and loving.
I've been seeing lots of rabbits lately.
Oh,
those remind me of you.
Yeah, I really identified with rabbits when I was a little girl and even into my mid-teens, because I was just so painfully shy and I was very scared of a lot of things. I understood rabbits very well. So I know people wouldn't ever imagine me being afraid of everything, but I really was. I was afraid of a lot. I was a worry word, but cancer.
I was gonna say, just a soft cancer.
I was like, didn't stop me from doing stuff, but my rabbits taught me a lot. They were a lot braver than people think. And I would be like, well, if my bunny can do that.
Yeah. I feel like we can learn so much just from observing nature. That's like, I've really been leaning into that lately.
Have you seen anything cool lately? What have you seen? Because you see cool stuff all the time.
Yeah. It was funny. There's like a family of cats, and what made me like realize like that Cancerian energy was there was like a baby kitten that was like almost falling off a wall, and the mom just like ran after it, like went like protective mode, like will drop anything to protect her babies. And like that protective nature of Cancer, like I really understood it in that moment. But even just like watching like trees and like how they get stronger like from the wind that hits them. And it may not look like they're like the tallest, but like maybe they have like the deepest roots. And I don't know, it might sound like, well, duh, to like some people, but like I don't know, when you really like viscerally feel it and like watch it, it's really beautiful. And even following Asanabe, I like all about observing nature. And it's really cool.
Yeah, for our listeners, Asanabe is a teacher of the 7th flame prophecy, or the 7th fire prophecy. And he is a teacher, a spiritual mentor, and absolutely phenomenal. I'll put his information in the show notes, because all of us teachers, when we see a teacher, and he was talking about that the other night on one of his live streams, but we recognize each other, and we might teach different things, But at the core of it, that golden thread is there, and we'll see it. We'll go, oh, you've walked a walk, because you don't get to teach this stuff just because you're intellectually good at it. And I think that's what you're talking about in your observations of nature. It's not just intellectually understanding that winds make a tree strong or the roots, give it more vitality. It's watching the energy play out and connecting with that one-on-one. And observing isn't just about knowing.
Yeah.
So it's a full immersion, energetically, emotionally, physically, and you do that very well. I see a spiritual teacher in the making. And you're like, oh, I don't know, but just wait, not far from now.
Well, and even like you just saying like that just means a lot.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Well, you've navigated some rough water in life, and we'll talk about some of that in a minute as much as you want to. But we got to get this astrology out.
Yeah.
July 22nd is when the sun ingresses into Leo this year. July 23rd, Venus stations retrograde. And we'll talk more about Venus retrograde on another episode because that's out towards the end of the month. But Venus will remain in Leo until like September, October. It's nuts. It is. It's like October. And then Mercury ingresses into Virgo on the 28th of July. I'm just going to make sure on the Venus. Yeah, because Venus is Leo, square Uranus and Taurus on September 29th. Yeah, Venus enters Virgo on October 8th. So we're going to have Venus in Leo for quite some time. Venus retrograde isn't a bad thing. It's really not. Again, we'll talk about that on another episode because it's a little further out and it's not anything to worry about. And there's going to be a bunch of people on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram having you clutch your pearls because Venus is retrograde. And what's going to happen, and mark my words, people are going to attribute all of the instability coming up July, August, September, October to that Venus retrograde, and that's bunkum. There's so much else happening. It's Venus is an internal process. It's about values. It's about worth. It's not going to be those retrogrades are not they're not the problem. They're not the problem.
I don't know why it's like a pop astrology thing to just like blame everything on a retrograde planet.
Because studying actual astrology requires a lot of effort and dedication. Oh, yeah. But it's true. And it's not just about knowing it. It's about really understanding it. I heard a great quote the other day, and it really rang because it just really mirrored what I teach. And it came from a book I read a long time ago. And I'm like, wow, did that have that much influence? And I was like, well, I kind of felt that way before I read it, but I didn't have words back in the day, like in college. It bothered me that to be a smart person, you had to be boring and a nihilist and always think that reality was something negative. So if you are optimistic, you're told you're unrealistic, right? And I was like, if you've got a 50-50 shot of something going this way or this way, how is being negative more realistic than this? If the odds are split, why is this realistic? And why do I have to be boring if I'm smart? Yeah, and they're like, well,
especially when we get to choose our thoughts. Why would you choose the one that doesn't feel good?
Exactly. Yeah. You've got some experience with that. How did it help you to know that you could train your Mercury?
it's funny, like you don't really think about how like you get to choose your own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that like I was my thoughts in a way, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I would follow those like thought spirals, and I would find myself at the bottom of like, how did I get here? You know, like a like deep dark place. And I was like, man, like that's the power of the brain really in our mind. And
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, I still struggle with that. It's not like something that like, oh, I'm cured, but it's
Same.
definitely helped. And I'm able to snap out of it easier.
I love
Like
that.
I'll catch myself. I'm like, hey, like that really doesn't feel good in my body. Like, let's choose a different path, or like, let's look at a meme or something. Like, let's do something that lightens the mood. And
Mm-hmm.
um, like, I don't think that's necessarily like bypassing, but when you're thinking those thoughts of like, that really put yourself down,
Mm-hmm.
like no one likes me, or like stuff like that. Like, why don't need to think that, like
Mm-hmm.
especially with my Libra placements, I think I'm like so focused on others sometimes, so bringing it back to like myself, and
Mm-hmm.
doing the things and choosing the thoughts where I'm like, oh, you know, I'm really not that bad, like just working your way up, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not jumping
Mm-hmm.
to, no, I love myself.
Right. Oh my God. No, you can't do that from when you're in poopy thought land, right?
Yes,
That
yeah.
that won't work. Yeah. But
Mhm.
yeah.
It brings your power back.
Mm-hmm. It does. Absolutely. Wise words, my dear.
Almost like
So,
Pluto is square my Mercury or something.
right? Deep thoughts. You will
Yes.
transform your thoughts.
Yes.
I'm not your father. But yes. But yeah. What brought you to spirituality in this way, or energy work? I don't really like to call it. I mean, it's spiritual, but it kind of
Mhm.
sounds very like, what brought you to this church?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but it's what caused you to start your search or start your
Mhm.
journey?
Yeah. So it's definitely something I've always been like drawn to. But like, you know, when you're in your teens and your 20s, you or early 20s, you're thinking about other things. But when I was 21, I was involved in a accident where I fell and became paralyzed, and so now I'm in a wheelchair, and you can't see it like in the frame, but that's why my hands are like this. It's like from, oh my god, I'm gonna tear up, but yeah, just from chest down. So I was I saw a lot, you know, I had a near death experience. I like my heart stopped, I stopped breathing and all of that. So I like saw things, and you know, being brought up Catholic, they don't talk about that at all, like the things that I saw. And so after I like was in rehab for a year, that's kind of when I started like really exploring it, and trying to understand things that are like the unexplainable. And I kind of found myself like alone a little bit, like having that like huge awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And like all I had really was like the internet as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was weird. I really did feel like very, very, very alone, and found myself in like dark places. And that's kind of when, you know, you're at rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
The only place to go is like up. And so I like slowly worked my way up, and astrology was very, very much a part of that process, and like understanding myself and understanding like the transits that were going on, and how it didn't have to happen like this, but like that is how it played out.
Right.
And so yeah, just working my way up from there. And spirituality gave like a new dimension
Mm-hmm.
to just like this like black and white thinking almost. And just knowing that like we're not our physical bodies at all. We are consciousness experiencing itself in a physical body, really. Um, and so just coming to understand that in like a multitude of different ways, and through astrology. And that's when I found you after finding you on TikTok and hearing you talk about certain things, not just the astrology. I was like, I could really, really learn from her, and not in like the star seed way, like that I had like found. I was like, I feel like that's almost predatory. Like, do you feel different? Like,
Yeah.
and
And I think we all do,
exactly.
because we don't, we just all do. And I asked the same questions when I was young and found my mentor. When the first question, I'm like, so am I an alien
Yeah.
soul? Because I don't fit in with people here. And he
Mhm.
laughed. He's like, you are of the earth and you have always been of the earth. And I was like, really? And then they qualified that your soul can express in other spaces. It's just mine was from here.
Yeah.
Most likely so are the people I teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so it's just helped a lot in terms of like mental health and working through like the physical, like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people we're very attached to our bodies, and like um I've dealt with other issues my whole life, and so it's just kind of I don't even know how to explain how it's helped, but I know that it has, because that's yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Right. I've watched you grow so much. You wouldn't have told that story before, and nor were
Mhm.
you under any obligation to tell the story today.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Well, and it's very much a part of who I am, and like
mhm,
why I am the way that I am, and
mhm,
like even my lens through how I view charts and astrology. It's
mhm,
very much like a from like a spiritual lens, and
mhm,
yeah, I think I see things a lot differently than I used to, and
mhm.
I can like see that soul in other people, and
Yeah.
try and like get in touch with that. I don't know. It's
That
it's a lot.
actually, it's true though, and help
Mhm,
people embody that. That's
mhm,
that's one of the it's one of the great benefits and privileges of doing deeper astrology, astrological work. It's helping people connect to their soul self in their
mhm.
physical. And doesn't mean we still don't say, oh, hey, look, you got a promotion coming.
Yeah.
That's part of the experience too.
Yes.
Um, but you work so well, and we all kind of move towards specialities, and as we have our focuses
Mhm.
and the things we have our preferences on as astrologers. And I'm not gonna lie, last year I told you, I was like, I see you as a spiritual coach. You're just going, and you're like, we'll see.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that now? I mean, because you're so
It is.
accurate in that.
Mhm. It is funny, like, I think that I just already do that, like,
Mhm,
by accident almost, and, like, it's almost like I wouldn't call it that, but I
mhm,
definitely see that as, like, what I kind of have been doing,
mhm,
especially with, like, the people that I read for, a
mhm,
lot of them are interested in that type of stuff,
mhm,
and, like, so I point out, like, "Hey, like, you'd be really good with, like, your hands and, like, doing Reiki if, like,
mhm,
that's something you've ever thought about," and most of the time, like, they're like, "Yeah, I really have thought about doing that," so,
mhm. I love that. Well,
yeah.
and you don't have to call yourself like a spiritual coach or a teacher, but you are. It's just who you
Mhm,
are. It's just
mhm.
it's part of that sixth house of yours.
Right.
Mm.
There's a lot there.
My One of my mentors who was a really important psychologist, H. Stephen Glenn, PhD, and he was truly my mentor. Not meaning like I read his book. No, I actually met the dude. Um, Anyway, he always said it's better to be the guide on the side versus the sage on the stage.
Yeah.
That's something I think we get to do as astrologers. We get to be, shepherds for people's inner wisdom. You've come a
Yeah.
long way, kiddo.
Thank you. It's been a
What?
journey.
Oh my gosh, yes. And what you described, that dark time, that's often called the dark night of the soul. And once you come out of that, and we all have dark nights of the soul. If you're an aspirant on the journey, if you're on the path, if you're doing the work, that's part of it. You don't have to live there forever. And you might sometimes have your toes in it a little bit now and then, but those are not easy times.
Yeah.
What do you think of people? I'm setting you up here. What do you think of people who say you chose that?
Yeah, it does not sit well with me personally. Because it's like, if you like love yourself from the soul level, why would you, put yourself through that intentionally? And I've had people like tell me that before, and I'm just like, yeah. And I know
Isn't
you
it?
have thoughts on that too.
I do. In fact, yeah, I held someone up against a wall when I was like 30 because they went, well, you chose it. And I was like, take it back.
Yeah, right.
And in my studies, that was one of the first things I went to metaphysically, was trying to prove that wrong, because I was like, there is no point to living if this soul of mine connected to the all that is, or God or goddess or whatever you want to call it, would purposely put me into a situation that caused absolute agony and torture. I'm like, I can't believe that was an intentional thing. And through my studies and my work and mentors, came to understand, no, that did not, you didn't choose that. It could have come in a lot of different ways. That was but one option that could occur.
Yeah.
But you were well prepared, and your soul will take advantage of any situation, positive or negative, to meet the goal. I was okay with that. I was like, I can understand an opportunistic self.
Yeah.
And that's something we covered in your first reading. I remember your reading in 2020 so clearly, because I got to that spot and I was like, I knew something had occurred, and I was like, we're going to tiptoe on this, because I didn't know you, I didn't know where your consciousness was. How did it feel for me to like go, what happened at this year?
Yeah. I think I was like almost waiting, because I knew you knew shit, basically. And like I was like waiting. I was like, and that was when I was really new, like to really more like deeply understanding my chart. So I wasn't really sure where you were going to like pick up on it. But yeah, you were like, did something with your health happen in like 2016? And I was like, yeah, actually. And I think I just like briefly told you.
It was I got the energy of moving on.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know you were paralyzed after that reading until later. So you were just kind of like, okay. I could feel that, and was like, okay, walking away from that one, moving on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think you had said in that reading, you were like, you didn't choose that. And that was like the first time I'd really heard that from like a spiritual person,
Yeah, that's really 1980s language, and before, it's very judgmental, and it's very like, people don't see it as a judgment, but you chose that. Make your bed, you lie, and my understanding is there's so many different pathways things can go, but that, like, we don't pick our trauma off of a menu. you know, and say like, oh, I'm going to have this as my entree. Oh, yes, a little PTSD. Yes, 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 yes. This
Right.
lifetime, it will be everything. Sorry, we don't do that. You know, we come equipped to manage what will come, and our souls will take advantage and gain understanding. And the more we integrate that soul into the body, the greater. And if you don't like soul, spirit. If you don't like spirit, your energy, the greater part of you, the greater part. You've got a little bit in a bottle here. We're going to shove as much of it in as we can. And people can think that's Delulu, and that's fine. I think going to an office all day is Delulu, and yet that's fine too, right? And I think where I like to focus isn't so much on the trauma. Like for me, that was always kind of irritating to always have to have that in the face. I'm sure you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's more on the healing. Like, where have you come to now? Where are you going to next? How can you live? And how does that work for you? Go ahead.
That's been like a huge part of it, I think, is just like, how do I continue living like with something I have to live with every single day? And it's just kind of, leaning into discomfort, and it's been a lot of healing. I think it'll be a lifelong healing process. I'm never going to be like fully healed or anything, but I do think
You'll get a long way.
Yeah, I hope so.
You will.
And like, it's funny, like I'm only like 7 years with this injury, so it's like I'm still pretty new, but yeah, so it's just like learning how to continue living and not get stuck or really focus. I think it's easy to get focused on that trauma story, like you said, especially when it's like the first thing people notice about me when I'm like out and about, and it's kind of like people think they're entitled to my trauma story, and so half the time I'll make up a story because I don't want to talk about it. I'll be like, what happened to you? I'm like, shark attack, like, and like some people are like, I think they get it, and so I'm just like, keep it moving. But yeah.
And just for our listeners, we're in agreement here. I haven't noticed, this is the first time we've talked about it here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's a Malcolm. 1 second.
That's okay. Well, and it's, I think it's easy to like, when you're on Zoom, you don't see it. And it is just like, it is a part of me. And it's like what's ultimately led me to where I am today. So I'm grateful for it in that aspect. But oh, there's my cat too. But yeah, so, and it's just a minor part of me. And like, it doesn't even come up in any reading that I'm doing ever. What was that?
Sorry, that was Malcolm.
Oh, but yeah, so it's just like a part of me, and disabilities are everywhere. I don't think people realize that, and yeah.
Well, for me, with you, it's not so much about your accident or being in a wheelchair. 1 second.
Malcolm wants to talk.
Oh, he wants to start something with the neighborhood Chihuahua. They've got their nemesis.
Oh no.
That's his nemesis. It's kind of like Elmo and Rocco. Malcolm, up. Come on.
Rocco.
All right, we got it.
That's my dog's name.
Oh,
Rest in peace. Oh my goodness, he's so sweet.
be nice. But yeah, so it's not so much about that, it's what you've done to grow and heal. Because I think when we over focus, not that the trauma isn't part of it, it is. And some people you can't see theirs, and then there are disabilities we can't see, although everybody thinks glasses correct you to like 100%. I'm like, you see how thick these things are? It doesn't even correct that eye. That's just for balance. This one don't see. But everybody has a different journey. But you deliberately chose to try to find meaning in life. You didn't have to choose that.
Yeah. And that's definitely like part of that free will too, because I like retrospectively, there's been times where I can like really see where I could have,
Either
gone
way.
a different path. And
Mhm,
there's multiple decisions I've made along the way to try and like better myself and like choose the things that I know are like good for me. And
mhm.
yeah, it's been a lot of choices, which is hard as a Libra.
Right? A Libra Mercury on top of it. Good Lord. I have a Libra moon and it's torture to get me to make a decision. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, but you know, you have, and I've watched you grow.
Mhm.
And I think the reason why I said what I said just now was I want listeners to understand, Mackenzie is a phenomenal reader and a phenomenal astrologer, a phenomenal metaphysician. And I do believe a spiritual teacher in the making. Um, it takes a long time to get there. Usually you wake up one day and you're like, how did I get to be the old person who knew stuff? I've been the student all this time. I've been supporting my teachers and mentors, and now I'm it. Oh, whoa. Um, but when you come to Mackenzie, it's not to trauma dump. Okay. Okay, Mackenzie's like, please don't. Um, so come to get tools, have an
Mhm.
open mind,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, definitely an open mind. I don't think there's a lot of closed-minded people
No.
that are coming to us, but yeah, definitely like, okay, so this happened, but you were given this in your chart, and
Mhm.
really you can lean into that, and that'll help you through. Um, I don't know if you hear my cat.
No, it's okay. Malcolm's trying to run out after his nemesis again. So as you're grinning, I'm grinning, holding him. So,
Yeah. Oh, but
but yeah.
yeah, lots of growth. And I
Mhm.
don't know, the moderators, we all talk about how we've like hit the jackpot with like spiritual teachers like you and Carrie and
Mhm.
Asanabe.
Right. And for the listeners, that's medium Carrie Wilson and Asanabe.
Mhm,
And I'll get them in the Discord. There's lots of us. There's more actual real teachers now versus the kind of the on stage gurus
mhm.
that were available. I was lucky to find the real deal, but they tend to hide, or at least when I was young, they were in hiding, and they just it was weird how you ended up with them. But
You had to
um
know a password or something.
yeah, oh gosh, my mentor, it was such a weird metaphysical experience how I met mine. It's a story for a different day, but because it was trippy. But there's more. I think there's more of us visible because of the times we live in,
Mhm,
and we don't get to hide and wait for our students to arrive at the door, because the world is going through a lot of shifts, and we do need to be. No, it's not ending. No, the sheep and the goats are not being separated. No, people aren't going to be left behind, but there is some bumpy territory.
mhm,
Um, and when you're equipped with your understanding versus knowledge, you have a few more tools to navigate bumpy territory. Spirituality isn't going to make your life perfect. It's not going to get rid of discomfort. It's not going to get rid of strained interpersonal relationships. You may still have disagreements with people. You may have less of them, but when they do happen, they might be significant because you're like, oh, I got to work on that part of myself. Oh.
Yep. Breathing helps.
Yes, breathing helps a lot. It's everything.
It really is.
Yeah, so that's just for our listeners to know, because Mackenzie's really a treasure. I felt like I had arrived when you showed up as a student. I was like, all right, it's time. The work has begun. Not that I haven't always taught, I have, but I was like, all right, next level teaching.
Yeah. Well, and I've said it before, but like when I came across your very first live that I saw, I was like, I know this woman. How do I know this Laurie Rivers? And like I remember waiting for somebody to like ask where you were from, because I like was convinced that I knew you, and like I don't know, just now all of our experiences, it makes sense. It was just that
soul connections.
Yeah.
You felt deeply familiar to me as well, which is beautiful. Oh my gosh, we need some tissues here in a minute.
I know, I was like, I'm gonna tear up.
I'm like, no, all right, talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah,
right, that's the Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Verklempt.
That's funny.
Oh, let's do some patron shout outs and then we'll answer some questions, because we only have so much time. I love Mackenzie, and I could do this all day long. While I'm looking for my Patreon app on my phone, you've been on Casey's podcast as well. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Casey's podcast is called Petty Astrology. And we all have been obsessed with Love Island. I think I've watched it for a long time, and I know Casey has too, and Jen at least the past like 4 or 5 years or something. But yeah, and so we're all like very into it. And the last few seasons we've been looking at their charts, and I'm really glad Casey started this podcast, because like these are conversations we had with each other.
Right? Yeah.
And so now that they're just being recorded, and it's real fun. Like it's real light and fun, and it's two of our interests combined, and yeah, we have a lot of fun.
I love that. I love that you guys are doing petty astrology, and that's the name of the podcast. And I think it's great. I love that you're doing that. I love that you guys are really collaborative together. We're doing more collective stuff, and we're starting a new thing in July, but called Woke Astrology Live with Mackenzie and Casey and Jen and me. And, we do a lot of independent work, but we're all very collaborative people. So it's very exciting to do something in the group. You'll find out more if you're a patron. Speaking of patrons, here's our Patreon shout outs. Erica Geroid O'Connor, Latrell, Jerry, James, Taryn, XXIB_ILLYXX. Okay. Christopher, Robin, Courtney, Mortal Shell, Carrie, Kate, Jen, Jessica, Alexandra, Farah, Hodger9, Heidi, Justin, Meg, Sabin, Courtney, Kathleen, Megan, Jennifer, Bianca, Jane, Maggie, May. Thank you for being patrons. Without you, there is no Awake Space Astrology podcast. And now it's time to look at some questions. I'm going to pull up my handy dandy form. Let's see. Did I prepare this week? No, I was not prepared. So give me a second. Distract the audience, Mackenzie.
Can't see me. I'm dancing. I feel like you get a lot of good questions. Like it's
I
hard to choose.
do. It is hard to choose because there's so much good stuff. I'm picking them at random.
Sorry. I remember like when I would take tests and I didn't know the answer to the question, I would close my eyes and put my finger on one.
Right. So I have a question from Mars conjunct Mars is what they've chosen to use as their name.
Oh,
What does Mars conjunct Mars mean? And I'm assuming Mars conjunct Mars by transit. That would be a Mars return.
mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Probably feeling more energized. I'm trying to remember my Mars return. I actually started like doing new things around that time.
Mhm.
I can't remember which house. Oh, it was the ninth house, Saturn.
Mhm. Isn't that when you went to study with Carrie?
Yeah, it really was
Yeah,
around that time. And I'm in my eighth house solar return, but yeah,
that's
definitely
me.
feeling more energized to like and more motivated, I think. Depending on the sign, but
Mhm. That's great.
yeah, and just starting a new cycle,
Mhm.
really,
Mhm.
that'll last
Yeah,
2 years.
yeah. Mars conjunct Mars in a natal chart is the Mars return.
Mhm.
A return is when the planet is at exactly the degree and minute it is in the birth chart. So it sets a chart. That's what Casey, or not Casey, Mackenzie. Oh my God, it's like my kids. It's like Malcolm. I mean, sorry, maybe you said, yeah.
Oh, it's funny. People call me Kenzie, so they sound
Right,
alike.
right. Kenzie. Um, so with the Mars return, it just kind of gives you a idea of what you're going to be doing for the next 2 years or so. It's just an overarching theme of the activities you're going to be doing. So when Mackenzie said she had Mars moving through ninth house is about, expanding your mind, and we broaden our horizons through travel, higher education, independent learning, a law, all kinds of things. And so she's been studying with medium Carrie Wilson. I love that the astrologers are studying with other people. I can teach a lot of metaphysics. They don't need to just learn from me. They need to learn from lots of other people. The more teachers, the better, as long as they're good teachers.
Mhm.
So, and they'll know, they all have good discernment. But now if you're asking about synastry, and that would be between one other person's chart. So like if I meet somebody who has a 2-degree Sag Mars, it means you do things in a similar way. You might actually irritate each other.
Mhm. Yeah.
That, you could get along really well, but you could also be like, why are they copying me? Because they
Yeah.
might move sharply or be direct, or you'd be like,
Mhm.
God, they're irritating because they're acting like you. You're
Yeah.
irritating yourself.
I could see like butting heads.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went on a date with a guy who was born the same year as me, but his Mars and such, which was at 2 degrees, was retrograde. And it was so weird, our approach to things. It was
And
just, it wasn't great.
oh,
And there's nothing wrong with retrograde, guys. It's just the energy just operates differently. And I was like, he was like super laid back,
oh yeah.
like no pulse. And I'm like, where's your sense of adventure, man? Oh, I've had a lot of adventure in life. I think I'll just be quiet. I'm like, well, I've had a lot of adventures. I want more. And I
Right.
was like, okay, he was tapped out. It was just really interesting. But yeah, so you'll either get along with it like a house on fire if it's synastry, or you'll irritate each other. Let's see, I have another one here. Oh, I asked that one, but it's such a good question. I don't want to delete it, but I just answered that a little while ago. Let's go up forward. Let's see. Okay, so this is from Joey R. Because that's how it's written. AARRR. So R. All right, what does it mean when a return chart goes retrograde? And their explanation for the question is, and because sometimes you only know what you know, and I like that they gave an explanation. You have your first Saturn return. A month later, you have another Saturn return, but from a retrograde, and then you have another Saturn return. Doesn't matter the planet, just curious about what it means. So when any planet, and I love your question, by the way, that was such a good question, Joey. Arr. I love pirates, but anyway, so that it's really one return as far as the process goes. If it's going over, backing up, going over again, the final pass is the actual return. The first pass, you get a theme for the length or duration of the first path from the return chart itself. Then it backs over and you get a chance to review and revise. I actually like the 3 first, except for Venus. Usually means you have to work on your value system and loving yourself and stuff like that, which can be so annoying, but they're not bad. It's just like, come on, Venus, return already. Let's go. But I don't have any patience. So, but when it comes to Saturn, it's usually in general a much more gentle experience than the right over the top of you. Unless you're just kind of super blessed. There are people who have like no drama during their Saturn returns, and I'm like, well, weren't you nice in 10 different lifetimes? But it's far more gentle when you're going over, because you're really getting the work. So if you have that 3 for in a Saturn return, especially because it just takes longer to complete its cycle, it takes 28 years or so to complete its cycle, you move forward with kind of more authority inside of yourself. There's a little less doubt. It's not easy. You're going through yours right now, aren't you?
Yes, and I just had what Joey R said, like Saturn returned and went over it, and then about 10 days later retrograded right back over.
Kind of like
I've
a
actually,
bus, huh?
what?
Kind of like a bus.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I will say I didn't feel any different, but it was more of an internal shift in a way. Which, I think I cried a lot around those 10 days, but that's just like a release. I'm a Cancer Mars. I need to cry. But yeah, and then ever since it retrograded back over, I've felt just a teeny bit lighter, but I think I do have a general idea of now what to expect when it goes back over for that final round.
Yeah. You'll make it, I promise. My daughter just finished hers earlier this year, and I'm really proud of her. She navigated it well. It wasn't, it's often not easy, but it doesn't have to be horrendous, So,
That's another one of those things that's like so hyped. The Saturn return.
right? Oh God, yeah. And people do anything for clicks, They did that though back in my day, like when I was first writing, like everybody, your Saturn return, fear it. And I'm like, why would you do that to people? Like, first of all, isn't life hard enough?
Some of those old books, like harsh.
Oh yeah, no, they'll scare the crap out of you.
Yeah.
That's why I chose to progress the narrative. It doesn't sugarcoat it or candy coat it. We understand life can have a huge amount of suckage, but why would you doom someone to a fate? That's just really not kind, nor is it necessary. you know, and when young people especially are drawn, because life is hard and it's confusing and everybody's on their journey and everybody thinks they're supposed to know what the destination is and they don't. They feel lost and confused, and so they go and they turn to books, you know, or YouTube videos or TikToks, and they're like, then they just find out, they're like, oh man, I'm screwed, and that's why I came out in the public, because I was on Reddit and I'm watching these kids, and kids to me, I mean adults, I mean I'm old, but I'm not old yet, but I'm pushing it, and I'm sure old to like a 16 or 17-year-old, I'm sure, you know, but because I would have looked old to me then too, but blaming themselves for not being where they thought they were supposed to be, or having achieved something, or you know, all these arbitrary ideals of where you're supposed to be in life. I'm like, one, life doesn't work that way, and you've been sold a bill of goods. Okay. Two, we're living in extraordinary times. You know, we're in one of the biggest changes in human history in 4,500 years, and you really aren't getting life wrong. You're doing life. That's period. You're doing it. You can do it with a little more ease and grace, but it's not even required. Ease and grace just makes it easier to get through. So there's that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's always good to be with you. I was trying to say if I was going to do one more question or not, but I got to do the horoscope lives here.
Oh yeah. Sunday.
So Sunday, 1:30 p.m. horoscope lives for the people in the horoscope tier and above. Let's see it now. I think I've got that part of the software working. If you're a patron, you know what kind of a shit show it was. In June was Mars square Uranus can go all the way to Hades, is what I have to say. Plus I had Jupiter on my Saturn.
Oh man.
And Pluto's opposite. Casey was taking a look at my charts last night and she was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is, man. It just is what it is. Yeah. I have an 8th house solar return year coming up.
Magic.
It damn well better be.
Right.
Give the universe some marching orders. Oh, Mackenzie, I'm so proud of you and all the work you've done for yourself to build your life. And of course, as my student, I can't imagine being so fortunate in such a high quality, earnest person.
Well, thank you for having me. I didn't know this is where it would go, but
I didn't either. We just kind of let it wander, didn't we?
Yes.
You know, yes. That's your ascendant and my Venus. And we're just going to trip down the light fantastic.
Yep, exactly.
I enjoyed this. I enjoy having you guys on because each one of you is a unique individual, but your hearts are aligned. And that's what matters. You can book with Mackenzie at the wokeastrology.com and keep your eyes open, guys, if you're on the mailing list. If you're not, go to wokeastrology.com and sign up for the mailing list, because we are going to start a live event called Woke Astrology Live. However, after my tech issues the last week, I'm going to make sure that the links work. But that's all right. We'll get through it. It's just a little resistance. All right, Mackenzie, much love. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Bye. Bye.